Why a narcissist seems to get so uneasy, even angry, when you refuse to break under their games. It's not just about ego or pride. There's something deeper happening in spiritual realm. Behind their mask is a darker influence, a demonic spirit that feeds on weakness, but trembles when it sees real strength in you. Your confidence, your resilience, and your faith are like a mirror that exposes everything they try so hard to hide. And that's the truth they fear the most. Today, we're going to uncover the hidden reasons why the narcissist's demonic spirit fears your strength. And once you see this, you'll never look at their behavior the same way again. So stay with me until the very end, because the last point will open your eyes in a way that changes how you deal with them forever. And before we begin, let me know in the comments if you've ever seen a narcissist react strangely to your inner strength. And don't forget to subscribe, because this channel is all about giving you the spiritual tools to break free and walk in your power. When most people hear the word narcissist, they immediately think of arrogance, selfishness, and manipulation. And while those traits are true, there's a much deeper truth hidden beneath the surface that often goes unnoticed. Narcissists are not just difficult people who want things their way. Their actions, their controlling nature, and their ability to drain the life out of others come from something darker than just personality flaws. Behind the mask, there is a spiritual battle taking place, and that battle is not simply about who is right or wrong. It's about light versus darkness, strength versus fear, truth versus deception. A narcissist's demonic spirit thrives when you are weakened, silenced, or confused. But the moment you step into your strength, they begin to lose their power over you. Think about it. Why does a narcissist push so hard to make you doubt yourself? Why do they attack the very parts of you that shine the brightest? Your kindness, your generosity, your love, your peace. It's because those qualities reflect light. And light always reveals what hides in the shadows. That's what terrifies them. It's not just you standing up for yourself that bothers them. It's the spirit of strength within you, the light you carry, that exposes the emptiness inside of them. They don't want to be seen for what they truly are, broken, insecure, and driven by a force that feeds on control. This is why dealing with a narcissist feels so draining. They don't just argue with words. They pull at your spirit. They chip away at your peace. They twist your truth until you question your own reality. And yet, when you stand firm and refuse to bend, something shifts. That demonic spirit inside them begins to panic. You'll notice their anger rise, their tone change, or their sudden urge to gaslight you even harder. That's not random. That's the spirit inside them reacting to your strength, because your strength threatens the very power it needs to survive. What many people don't realize is that narcissists are terrified of exposure. They wear masks to appear confident, powerful, and untouchable, but it's only an act. Deep down, their demonic spirit trembles when it comes face to face with someone who cannot be manipulated. Someone who refuses to play their games. Someone who knows who they are. Your identity is their biggest fear, because when you know who you are, you cannot be controlled. And once control slips away, so does their false sense of power. This is why you'll often see narcissists shift tactics the moment they realize their usual tricks don't work on you anymore. They may go silent, withdraw their affection, or even turn to rage. It's not strength you're seeing in those moments, it's desperation. Because their demonic spirit knows it's losing ground. It knows that the light inside of you is too strong to be dimmed. It knows that your strength comes from a source greater than them, and that is what shakes them at their core. The truth is, narcissists are spiritually weak. They may appear bold on the outside, but their confidence is an illusion, built on the need to tear others down. When you refuse to be torn down, when you rise above their accusations, when you walk away from their chaos without fear, You reveal their weakness. You take away the only power they thought they had over you. And that is why they fear you. Not because you fight them back in the way they expect, but because you stand in strength, calm, and truth, something no demonic spirit can handle for long. This hidden spiritual battle is not always visible to the eye, but you feel it in your soul. You sense it when the atmosphere around them changes, when the energy feels heavy, when their words carry more venom than usual. That is the spirit at work. It feeds on your reaction, your fear, your self-doubt. But when you refuse to give it what it wants, it starves. And in that starvation, it panics. It lashes out. It tries harder to drag you back into confusion. Because clarity is what destroys it. Your clarity is power. Your peace is power. Your ability to hold on to truth when lies are being thrown at you is power. And this is the very reason the narcissist's demonic spirit fears you. It cannot survive in the presence of someone who refuses to lose themselves. It cannot thrive when you stand firm in your identity. It cannot continue its cycle of control when you stop playing the role of victim and start embracing the role of victor. But here's the part many people miss. This battle is not about fighting the narcissist directly. You don't win by screaming louder, by proving your point, or by forcing them to see the truth. You win by refusing to give them access to your spirit. You win by protecting your peace, guarding your heart, and staying grounded in your light. This is what makes you untouchable. This is what the demonic spirit inside them cannot handle. Because no matter how much they try to provoke you, if you refuse to break, you already win. And isn't it interesting that the very things narcissists claim to hate about you, your independence, your confidence, your refusal to settle for less, are the very things they secretly fear? That's because your strength reveals their weakness. Your clarity uncovers their confusion. Your healing dismantles their chaos. You are everything they cannot be. And that is what makes their demonic spirit rage against you. So the next time you wonder why a narcissist is trying so hard to tear you down, remember this truth. It's not because you're weak. It's because you're strong. It's because you carry light. It's because the spirit inside of you is a threat to the darkness inside of them. That is the hidden spiritual battle, one that most people never see, but one you must understand, because once you do, you will no longer fear their anger, their silence, or their manipulation. Instead, you'll see it for what it is, a sign that your strength is working, a sign that their demonic spirit is afraid. And when you reach that place, when you truly know that your strength is not just about surviving their abuse, but about rising above it, you will see how powerless they really are. The battle isn't about them destroying you. It's about you realizing that they cannot. The light inside of you is greater than any darkness they carry. And that is why the narcissist's demonic spirit fears your strength. Strength doesn't always look like what the world imagines. It's not loud, aggressive, or forceful. True strength often shows up quietly, in the way you refuse to give up, in the way you continue to love even after being mistreated, in the way you hold onto your faith when everything around you is falling apart. This is the kind of strength that intimidates darkness, because it cannot be controlled, it cannot be broken, and it cannot be explained by ordinary means. When you carry resilience in your heart, when you choose kindness instead of bitterness, and when you live with unshakable faith, you are surrounding yourself with a shield that no narcissist can penetrate. Narcissists thrive on the weakness of others. They depend on your doubts, your fears, and your insecurities. They feed on chaos and pain, because that's where their control feels the strongest. But when they encounter someone who refuses to stay broken, their grip begins to slip. Resilience is one of the most powerful weapons you carry, because it shows them that no matter how many times they try to tear you down, you will always rise again. And every time you rise, You remind them that their power is limited. They can wound you, but they cannot destroy you. Your kindness also plays a role that confuses and intimidates them. Most people respond to cruelty with cruelty, but when you continue to show grace without allowing yourself to be abused, you are demonstrating a strength they cannot understand. Kindness is not weakness. It is power under control. It proves that you are not reacting from a place of fear, but from a place of inner confidence. And this unsettles the narcissist's demonic spirit, because it thrives on conflict, and when you refuse to give it fuel, it starves. Faith, however, is the deepest shield of all. When your strength is rooted in something greater than yourself, it becomes untouchable. A narcissist may try to manipulate your emotions, twist your words, or make you doubt your worth, but faith anchors you in truth. It reminds you that your identity does not come from their approval or rejection. Your worth is not defined by their treatment of you. Faith speaks louder than their lies, and that's why it terrifies them. The demonic spirit behind the narcissist knows that when you are connected to divine strength, its power over you is broken. This combination, resilience, kindness, and faith, forms a shield that darkness cannot pass through. It weakens the narcissist's grip because it leaves them powerless. They cannot control someone who refuses to give up. They cannot manipulate someone who chooses love over fear. They cannot destroy someone whose foundation is built on faith. And this is why your strength is so intimidating to the darkness they carry. Because in the end, your light doesn't just survive their attacks. It outshines them completely. Confidence is one of the most threatening qualities you can carry in the presence of a narcissist, but not the kind of confidence that comes from pride or arrogance. The confidence that comes from knowing who you are in God. This unshakable identity is what tears through the mask a narcissist tries so hard to wear. They thrive on illusions, on convincing others that they are powerful, superior, and always in control. But when you walk into the room with a steady calm, rooted in your worth and anchored in your faith, their false strength begins to crumble. Their demonic spirit cannot withstand someone who is unmovable because it feeds on fear and doubt. The truth is, narcissists project an image to cover what they lack inside. Their mask is built on lies. Lies that say they are untouchable. Lies that say they are admired. Lies that say they are stronger than anyone else. But confidence rooted in God reveals the cracks in that mask. You don't even have to confront them directly. Your presence alone becomes a mirror that reflects their insecurity. When you carry yourself with assurance, when you don't chase their approval, when you know you don't need their validation, they are reminded of their emptiness, and that reminder terrifies them. Notice how a narcissist reacts when you refuse to bow to their manipulation. If you don't break under their criticism, they often grow louder, more dramatic, more desperate. That's because your strength exposes their weakness. Your confidence tells them that their words have no power over you. Your assurance shows them that their rejection cannot shake you. And deep down, they know that if you remain unmoved, their entire illusion of control falls apart. It's not just about you being confident in yourself. It's about you being confident in who God says you are. That kind of identity cannot be shaken, because it's not based on the shifting opinions of people. It's not built on compliments, achievements, or external validation. It's rooted in eternal truth. And when a narcissist's demonic spirit encounters that kind of unshakable foundation, it reacts with fear, because nothing they say, nothing they do, can pull you away from it. This is why confidence is not just a trait. It is a spiritual weapon. It reveals what is false. It uncovers what is hidden. It shows the world that the narcissist is not the giant they pretend to be, but a fragile person desperately clinging to a mask. And the moment that mask is exposed, their control begins to vanish. So when you walk in confidence, you are not only protecting yourself, You are shining a light that reveals truth, and truth is what the demonic spirit behind a narcissist cannot handle. It cannot live in the presence of someone who knows who they are, and that is why your confidence is one of the greatest threats to their entire existence. A narcissist spends their entire life perfecting the mask they wear. That mask is carefully designed to impress, to charm, to manipulate, and to deceive. It is the version of themselves they want the world to see, confident, powerful, admired, even flawless. But behind that mask lies deep insecurity, shame, and emptiness. Most people never see beyond the surface, because the narcissist is skilled at hiding the truth. Yet, when someone filled with genuine light steps into their life, the cracks in that mask begin to show. Your light exposes what their darkness works so hard to conceal. You see, light doesn't have to try. It doesn't have to fight. All it has to do is shine, and the darkness has no choice but to retreat. That's why your presence feels so threatening to a narcissist. Your kindness, your faith, your authenticity. They carry a brightness that pierces through their facade. It reveals inconsistencies in their stories, contradictions in their behavior, and insincerity in their actions. They can fool many people, but they cannot fool someone who carries discernment and spiritual clarity. And this is why the demonic spirit within them reacts so strongly when you stand firm in truth. The more you shine, the more their mask begins to slip. You'll notice it in subtle ways at first. Irritation when you don't fall for their lies, anger when you remain calm in the face of their manipulation, or even mockery when your faith refuses to bend. These are signs that the mask is cracking, that their grip on the illusion is loosening. The narcissist's demonic spirit cannot hold its disguise in the presence of someone who refuses to live in deception. And here's the part they fear most. Once the mask begins to crack, others start to see it too. The people they worked so hard to charm or control may begin to question them. Their carefully built image starts to look unstable. Their false strength starts to appear weak. This is why they work so hard to silence you, discredit you, or paint you as the problem. Because deep down, they know your light has the power to reveal the truth not just to you, but to everyone around them. But here's the beauty of it. You don't even need to fight them directly. You don't need to argue, expose, or prove anything. Your light does the work for you. Every time you choose peace over chaos, every time you stand in truth without fear, every time you remain authentic when they try to pull you into pretense, the cracks in their mask grow wider, and eventually the mask cannot hold. The illusion shatters, and what is left behind is their true self, fragile, fearful, and powerless. This is the power of light. It doesn't destroy through force. It destroys through exposure. And that is why the narcissist's mask cannot survive in your presence. Their demonic spirit fears the very thing you carry naturally. Light that cannot be hidden, strength that cannot be broken, and truth that cannot be silenced. The more powerful you become, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, the harder it becomes for a narcissist to hide from the truth about themselves. Your growth acts like a mirror, reflecting back to them everything they are not. While you rise in strength, they are forced to confront their own emptiness. This is one of the most painful realities for a narcissist's demonic spirit because its survival depends on convincing you that you are weak, broken, and in need of their control. But when you begin to heal, when you reclaim your power, when you start standing in the fullness of who you are, their tactics stop working, and without the ability to manipulate you, their illusion of power begins to crumble. This is why your progress bothers them so much. They may act dismissive or indifferent, but deep down, they are deeply unsettled. Your emotional maturity exposes their emotional immaturity. Your spiritual depth reveals their spiritual emptiness. Your mental clarity highlights their confusion. Every step you take toward growth feels like a spotlight on their shortcomings. They can no longer hide behind charm, intimidation, or manipulation, because your strength has given you discernment, and discernment always sees through deception. It's important to understand that this reflection of their weakness isn't something you're doing on purpose. You're not trying to provoke them. You're simply evolving. You're learning how to set boundaries, how to protect your energy, how to walk in faith instead of fear. But to a narcissist's demonic spirit, this evolution is a direct threat. It shatters the dynamic they've built around you being dependent, silent, or unsure of yourself. It forces them to see the reality they work so hard to escape. They are not as powerful as they pretend to be. Your strength also forces them to face the emptiness inside themselves. When you stop reacting, stop feeding their chaos, and start thriving in your own life, they are left alone with their own darkness. The very things they mocked or tried to destroy in you, your hope, your kindness, your resilience, become the things that set you free. And in that freedom, you reflect back to them the life they could have lived but chose not to. This reflection is unbearable for them because it proves they are not the giants they imagine, but rather small and afraid behind their mask. This is why your growth matters so much. Every time you heal, every time you forgive without returning to abuse, every time you choose clarity over confusion, you are silently dismantling their hold over you. Your strength reflects their weakness so clearly that they cannot stand it for long. And in that reflection, you reclaim your power and reveal the truth. They never had real power over you in the first place. When you look at a narcissist from the outside, it can seem like everything they do is simply calculated manipulation. They gaslight, they twist words, they create confusion, they push buttons. But if you stop and look deeper, you'll notice something more than a personality trait at work. Their tactics aren't just habits they picked up. They follow the same patterns over and over again, like a script. That script comes from a darker place. The narcissist operates under a spirit of fear, control, and deception, a demonic influence that thrives on power over others, but trembles the moment someone refuses to submit. Understanding this truth doesn't excuse their behavior, but it explains why it feels so heavy, why it drains you, and why their reactions can seem almost inhuman when their control begins to slip. Fear is the foundation of that spirit. A narcissist's entire world is built on the fear of being exposed, the fear of being powerless, and the fear of facing their own emptiness. To cover that fear, the demonic spirit pushes them into control. They seek to dominate conversations, to control outcomes, to decide how others see them. They rewrite history to protect their image, because truth threatens their survival. When you interact with them, you're not just dealing with a person's insecurities. You're dealing with a force that cannot stand truth and light. That is why even small acts of self-assertion from you, a calm no, a clear boundary, a refusal to argue, can make them react with rage, panic, or even smear campaigns. Their spirit is not reacting to your words. It's reacting to the loss of control. Deception is the weapon this spirit uses most. Gaslighting, triangulation, silent treatment, and false apologies are all tools meant to create confusion and doubt. The demonic spirit behind a narcissist knows that if you are unsure of yourself, you are easier to control. It twists reality, blurs your memory, and makes you second-guess your instincts. You start questioning whether you're too sensitive, whether you're misunderstood, whether you're imagining things. That's not an accident. It's spiritual warfare disguised as everyday conflict. Darkness thrives where there is confusion, because confusion weakens clarity, and clarity is what breaks its hold. Yet, the moment you begin to see clearly, the grip starts to weaken. That's why narcissists often become more desperate when you heal or grow stronger. They sense, even if they can't name it, that the power they held is slipping. The demonic spirit inside them trembles because it feeds on your compliance. It cannot survive without your energy, your attention, your agreement. And when you refuse to submit, when you stay calm instead of reacting, when you stand in truth instead of defending yourself, when you detach instead of engaging, it starves. That's when their mask cracks and their tactics intensify, because the spirit inside them is fighting for survival. It's important to see this for what it is so you don't take their behavior personally. Their attacks are not evidence of your weakness. They are evidence of your strength. A narcissist's demonic spirit would not fight so hard if you weren't a threat to it. The reason they target your kindness, your faith, your confidence is because those qualities are like light. And light does not just reveal darkness, it drives it back. When you remain grounded in who you are, when you refuse to be pulled into their chaos, you are doing far more than winning an argument. You are breaking the spiritual power that their manipulation depends on. The spirit of fear, control, and deception also hates exposure. Narcissists live off secrecy. They thrive when people don't compare notes, when victims stay silent, when no one names the abuse. But the moment you speak truth, even quietly, you disrupt the atmosphere. You pull their tactics into the open where they lose power. This is why many survivors notice that after they start healing or talking about their experiences, the narcissist behaves even more erratically. The demonic spirit knows that light and truth spread, and once others begin to see through the act, the narcissist's entire structure of control begins to collapse. Understanding this also changes how you respond. If you view every conflict as a personal battle, you'll be drained. But if you see it as a spiritual battle, you'll understand why your calmness, your boundaries, and your clarity are so powerful. You'll stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace, and you'll stop thinking you can fix them by being more patient. You cannot heal a spirit that thrives on deception. You can only refuse to participate in its games. That refusal is what makes it tremble. And here's something many people miss. You don't have to become cold or hard to break free. In fact, your empathy, your kindness, and your faith are still your greatest strengths. The difference is that you direct them wisely. You extend compassion without giving up your boundaries. You show grace without becoming a doormat. You love yourself enough to walk away from toxicity. That combination confuses the demonic spirit behind the narcissist because it expects either submission or hostility, not calm, grounded power. When you stand in that power, you start to notice shifts. The narcissist's words stop landing. Their accusations lose their sting. Their silence no longer scares you. And in that moment, you'll see the truth. Their power was never real. It only existed as long as you believed in it. The demonic spirit behind their manipulation is not as strong as it appears. It's a parasite. It cannot create its own energy, so it steals yours. But once you stop feeding it, once you stop giving it access, it starves. And nothing terrifies it more than starvation. This is why, over time, you may even see the narcissist distance themselves from you. They may smear you to others, but privately they begin to withdraw. That's not because you're weak. It's because your light is too strong. Your refusal to submit is like a boundary of fire they cannot cross. They will seek someone else who is easier to manipulate, someone who hasn't yet seen through the mask. It's not a reflection of your value. It's a sign that you've broken free from their control. In the end, understanding the demonic spirit behind the manipulation frees you from confusion. It gives you clarity. It reminds you that you are not imagining things. You are not overreacting. And you are not weak. You are in a battle that many people never recognize, but you are equipped to win. The more you stand in truth, the weaker their grip becomes. The more you refuse to submit, the more that spirit trembles. And as it trembles, you rise stronger, freer, and more anchored than ever before. That is the reality of the demonic spirit behind the manipulation. It thrives in fear but flees from courage. It feeds on control but collapses under freedom. It lives in deception but dies in the presence of truth. And every time you choose to stand firm, every time you choose clarity over confusion, peace over chaos, and faith over fear, you are dismantling its power piece by piece. It may rage. It may lash out. It may try to pull you back, but it cannot win against someone who refuses to bow. Your strength, your light, your faith, those are not just personal qualities. They are spiritual shields. And that is why the narcissist's demonic spirit trembles when you refuse to submit. Silence can feel strange at first. When you've been pushed, baited, and provoked by a narcissist for so long, your instinct may be to defend yourself, to explain, to fight back, or to prove your innocence. But there's a point in your journey where you realize that words don't work, not because you're weak, but because they're never meant to. Narcissists don't argue to reach understanding. They argue to drain you. They create chaos to pull you into their world, where they control the rules. And that's why your silence terrifies them more than your confrontation ever could. Silence isn't passivity. It's not defeat. It's a weapon, one of the most powerful tools you have in spiritual and emotional warfare. When you withdraw your energy, you cut off the supply their demonic spirit feeds on. Narcissists thrive on reaction. It doesn't matter if it's anger, tears, defensiveness, or even pleading. Every reaction is proof that they still control your emotional state. It's like oxygen to a fire. As long as you keep responding, even negatively, their manipulation has power. But the moment you stop feeding it, when you no longer explain, no longer justify, no longer engage, you take that oxygen away. The fire begins to die. And nothing terrifies them more than a fire that's going out. This is why narcissists often escalate when you first go silent. They poke harder. They provoke deeper. They throw bigger accusations. They'll text you, call you, smear you, and try every button they know to get you to react. They don't do this because your silence isn't working. They do it because it is. On a spiritual level, the demonic spirit behind them senses its hold slipping. It's starving. And like anything that's starving, it grows frantic. It tries to pull you back into its chaos, because that's the only way it can survive. This is why staying silent feels so hard at first, because you're not just resisting a person. You're resisting a spirit of control and fear that's used to being fed. Silence also exposes something the narcissist cannot bear, their own emptiness. As long as you're speaking, they have something to push against, something to manipulate, something to twist. But when you stop, when you become a still, unmoving presence, they're left alone with themselves. And that's their greatest fear. Without someone else's energy to consume, they feel the void inside. They're forced to see the truth of their own brokenness. That's why silence doesn't just frustrate them. It terrifies them. Because silence is like a mirror. It reflects back what they've been running from. It's important to understand that using silence as a weapon is not about playing games. It's not the silent treatment in the way narcissists use it to punish or manipulate. It's a conscious choice to disengage from toxicity. It's a boundary. It's saying, without words, I will not participate in this chaos. I will not give you my peace. I will not let you feed off my emotions. This kind of silence is rooted in strength, not spite. It's a refusal to let someone's darkness pull you out of your light. When you embrace this kind of silence, you start to feel something shift inside you. At first, it may feel unnatural. You might even feel guilty, because you've been conditioned to believe that explaining yourself is necessary, or that staying quiet makes you rude. But over time, you begin to feel your power returning. Your nervous system calms down. Your thoughts become clearer. You start noticing how much of your energy used to be spent on defending yourself against lies, or trying to fix situations that were never meant to be fixed. Silence becomes a sanctuary. It becomes the space where you heal, where you regain your clarity, where you hear your own voice again. This is also where the narcissist's tactics begin to fail. They may still try to provoke you, but your silence means their arrows hit the ground instead of your heart. Their words lose their sting. Their manipulations lose their grip. They're like an actor performing on stage to an empty audience. And without an audience, the performance collapses. This isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. The demonic spirit behind their manipulation cannot thrive in an atmosphere of peace. Peace is like poison to it. And every time you choose silence over chaos, you're pouring another dose of that poison into its system. Silence also protects your dignity. When you refuse to explain yourself to someone who twists your words, you're no longer giving them permission to rewrite your reality. When you stop arguing with someone who distorts the truth, you're no longer lending credibility to their lies. You stand taller, calmer, more grounded. You realize that you don't need to defend yourself in front of someone who's not listening in good faith. That realization alone is a kind of freedom. The beauty of silence is that it speaks louder than words ever could. It says, I am no longer available for manipulation. It says, I know who I am, and I don't need your approval. It says, I refuse to play this game. And those messages pierce deeper than any argument you could make, because on some level, the narcissist knows they've lost their grip. They may never admit it out loud, but they feel it. That's why silence is not just a tactic. It's a declaration of independence. Over time, your silence becomes a shield. It keeps you from reacting impulsively. It gives you time to think before you respond. It protects your peace and your mental health. And as your inner strength grows, you begin to see the narcissist's behavior for what it is. Not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of their own internal battle. That clarity allows you to step back without bitterness, to disengage without hate, to move forward without carrying their chaos with you. This doesn't mean silence is easy. There will be days when you want to break it, when you want to defend yourself, when you want to lash out. But every time you choose silence instead, you're building a new muscle. You're teaching yourself that you are no longer reactive, that you are no longer controlled by their behavior. You're reminding yourself that your energy is precious, and not everyone deserves access to it. And as you do this, something powerful happens. The narcissist's demonic spirit no longer recognizes you as a source of supply. It may still try to provoke you, but eventually, it moves on. Not because you lost, but because you won. You became untouchable. You became someone whose peace could not be stolen, whose energy could not be drained, whose light could not be dimmed. Silence did that. Silence broke the chains that words could never break. In the end, silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the presence of power. It's the space where your spirit stands tall, where your boundaries hold firm, where your peace remains unshaken. It's a spiritual weapon that cuts off the lifeline of fear, control, and deception. And every time you wield it, you send a message, not just to the narcissist, but to the darkness behind them. I see you. I'm not afraid of you, and you will not feed on me anymore. That is the power of silence. That is why withdrawing your energy terrifies them more than confrontation ever could. Not your anger, not your confrontation, but your wholeness. Because when you begin to heal, the very chains they've tried to wrap around you start to loosen. This is not only an emotional process, It's a spiritual one. Through prayer, growth, and self-love, you are not just mending the wounds they inflicted. You are reclaiming territory they thought they owned. Each act of forgiveness, each new boundary, each quiet moment of self-reflection is like striking a hammer against the links of their bondage. Slowly, quietly, the chains that held you begin to fall away. Narcissists thrive on brokenness. They target empathy, kindness, and hope because those qualities are powerful, and they know it. But when a person is wounded, those gifts become easier to exploit. Your confusion fuels their control. Your pain gives them leverage. Healing takes away that leverage. When you start to see clearly, when you begin to understand your worth, when you nurture your soul and draw closer to God, the narcissist's demonic spirit can no longer hook into you the way it once did. You become harder to manipulate, harder to guilt, harder to shame. You begin to stand in a light they cannot approach without being exposed. This is why your healing feels like a threat to them. It disrupts the dynamic that gives them power. They depend on you doubting yourself, questioning your reality, and believing their lies. Healing does the opposite. It restores your discernment, strengthens your intuition, and reminds you who you really are. As that identity solidifies, their tactics fail. They may try harder for a while, guilt trips, gaslighting, smear campaigns, but deep down they know the truth. The version of you they controlled is gone. Your self-love also speaks volumes in the spiritual realm. When you treat yourself with dignity, you send a message to every dark influence around you. I am no longer a victim. Prayer strengthens your spirit, aligning you with a power far greater than any manipulation. Growth renews your mind, replacing lies with truth. Together, these steps form a shield that not only protects you, but also exposes the hollowness of the narcissist's hold. This is why healing is not selfish, it's spiritual warfare. Every boundary you set is an act of freedom. Every moment of self-care is an act of resistance. Every prayer you whisper is a declaration that their bondage is breaking. They cannot stand it, because your healing proves they never owned you. They only borrowed your pain. And now you're taking it back. The greatest threat to a narcissist's demonic spirit is not your silence, not your boundaries, not even your emotional strength. It is your connection with God. This bond is something they cannot touch, cannot twist, and cannot destroy. Because when your life is rooted in prayer, faith, and divine guidance, you are no longer standing on shaky ground. You are anchored in a power that no manipulation can shake. The narcissist thrives on confusion and deception, but God is the author of truth and clarity. And when you walk in His presence, you see through the games. You recognize the lies. You discern the traps. That is why the spirit behind the narcissist trembles when you get close to God, because it knows it has lost control. Prayer is one of the sharpest weapons you hold in this battle. The narcissist wants you reactive, drained, and dependent on their approval. But when you pray, you step into a conversation with the one who already knows the truth. Prayer restores your perspective. It reminds you that you don't need the narcissist's validation because you already have God's affirmation. Every whispered prayer becomes a shield, protecting your heart from manipulation. Every word of gratitude, every cry for strength, every moment of surrender builds a wall of spiritual fire around you that no demonic spirit can cross. Faith is equally powerful. The narcissist's entire strategy depends on fear. They need you to fear abandonment, rejection, and loss. Fear is their weapon, but faith dismantles that weapon. Faith tells you that even if they walk away, you are not alone. Faith assures you that your future is not in their hands, but in God's. Faith whispers that what was meant to break you will become your testimony. And when you believe that, when you truly carry faith in your heart, the narcissist loses the one thing they counted on most, your fear. Without fear, their manipulation has no fuel. Without fear, their intimidation has no bite. Without fear, their demonic spirit is exposed for the powerless shadow it really is. Divine guidance is what leads you out of their traps. Narcissists create webs of deception, spinning lies so tightly that you begin to question your own mind. They distort reality until you doubt your memories, your worth, even your sanity. But God's Spirit is a spirit of truth. When you lean into His guidance, the fog begins to lift. Suddenly, what felt confusing becomes clear. The patterns you once ignored begin to stand out. The lies lose their weight because truth rises up inside you. God gives you discernment, that inner knowing that cannot be manipulated. You may not always be able to explain it, but you can feel it when something isn't right. And that discernment is what sets you free. Your connection with God also reminds you of your identity. Narcissists work tirelessly to strip away your sense of self. They chip at your confidence, mock your gifts, and belittle your achievements until you feel small enough to fit in the box they've created for you. But God never called you small. He called you chosen. He called you beloved. He called you fearfully and wonderfully made. And when you begin to embrace that identity, the narcissist's words lose their power. They may still speak them, but they no longer sink into your soul. Instead, they bounce off the armor of truth that God has clothed you with. This is why your spiritual walk terrifies them. It means you're no longer dependent on them for direction, love, or security. You've shifted your foundation from a broken human to an unshakable God. And in that shift, you've broken the cycle. Because no matter what they do, no matter how they twist or turn, they cannot compete with the voice of God in your life. His voice cuts through the noise. His presence fills the emptiness they try to exploit. His promises outshine the lies they whispered. And it goes even deeper. Your connection with God doesn't just protect you. It transforms you. In prayer, you find peace that no chaos can shake. In worship, you find joy that no cruelty can steal. In Scripture, you find wisdom that no manipulation can undo. You begin to carry a light, a glow that they cannot dim. And that glow is what unnerves them most, because it is not just your strength they're facing anymore. It is God's strength shining through you. When His Spirit lives within you, you carry authority. You carry peace. Walking away is not surrender. It's not giving up. It's not weakness. It is one of the most powerful decisions you can ever make in the face of a narcissist's manipulation. For so long, you may have been taught that strength looks like staying, fighting, proving yourself, or enduring. But in the spiritual realm, true strength is often quiet. It's the calm resolve to step out of chaos and choose peace. And that decision, that moment when you walk away, is what dismantles the narcissist's spiritual power over you more than any argument ever could. Narcissists want you entangled. They feed on your energy, your reactions, your attempts to defend yourself. They create drama because drama keeps you tethered to them. As long as you're in the fight, they still have a hold. But the moment you choose to leave the battlefield, not in defeat, but in peace, their grip begins to crumble. Walking away severs the supply their demonic spirit thrives on. It denies them the emotional fuel that gives their tactics life. And without that fuel, their power withers. This doesn't mean walking away is easy. It can feel like you're losing at first, especially if they've conditioned you to equate endurance with strength. But in reality, walking away requires a deeper courage. The courage to release what's toxic. The courage to put your peace above their chaos. The courage to trust that God will guide and protect you even outside the storm. In choosing peace, you are choosing to protect your mind, your spirit, and your future. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. In spiritual terms, walking away is like stepping out of a snare. The narcissist's demonic spirit can't follow you into the space of freedom you create. It's bound to chaos, to control, to deception, and you've just chosen the opposite: peace, clarity, and truth. That's why your departure often triggers panic in them. They will smear guilt or bait you to return, because your absence reveals how powerless they really are. But you'll notice something beautiful happens on your side. As you stay gone, your energy returns, your vision clears, and your spirit feels lighter. Walking away is not just leaving them behind. It's walking toward yourself, toward healing, toward God's plan for your life. It's reclaiming the parts of you they tried to break. It's stepping into a future where your strength is no longer wasted on battles you were never meant to fight in the end. The greatest revelation of all is this: the narcissist's demonic spirit never truly feared losing control of you. It feared the discovery of who you really are. For as long as it could, it tried to convince you that you were small, fragile, unworthy, and dependent on its approval. But the moment you began to awaken, the moment you started to realize the light you carry inside of you, the game changed forever. Because what darkness fears most is not confrontation, but exposure. And your strength, your faith, your resilience, they all expose the emptiness that hides behind the narcissist's mask. The truth is, you carry something the narcissist can never imitate. They can mimic charm, copy success, even pretend a kindness, but they cannot replicate the purity of your light. They cannot reproduce the depth of your faith. They cannot counterfeit the destiny God has placed over your life. That is why they are drawn to you in the first place, because your spirit shines in ways they secretly envy. Yet instead of nurturing their own growth, they choose to feed off yours. Instead of seeking their own healing, they try to break yours. But here lies the revelation. No matter how hard they try, they cannot destroy what God Himself has established. Your strength terrifies them because it is not rooted in ego, but in survival. It is the strength forged in battles you were never supposed to win, yet you did. It is the strength refined in tears they never thought you'd recover from, yet you rose. Every scar you carry is proof that you've been through fire and emerged stronger, while they remain bound to the very flames they set. That contrast reveals the core truth. Your growth is inevitable, but their emptiness is permanent unless they seek true change. And because they refuse to face their own weakness, your very existence becomes a threat to their illusion. The narcissist's demonic spirit fears you because you are free, not because you never stumbled, but because you refuse to stay down. Freedom is the one thing they cannot tolerate, because their entire identity is built on control. They want to dictate how you feel, how you see yourself, and how you live your life. But when you choose healing, when you walk in faith, when you rise in strength, you prove that their control was an illusion all along. And in that moment, their greatest weapon shatters. This is why you may notice their attacks intensify the closer you move toward wholeness. They sense the shift. They see that the chains are breaking, that the lies are losing grip, that your identity is no longer theirs to manipulate. But what they don't realize is that every attempt to weaken you has only deepened your connection with God. Every betrayal pushed you closer to prayer. Every insult drove you deeper into self-reflection. Every wound made you stronger than before. And now, you stand at a light they cannot comprehend, a light that burns through deception and exposes truth. The final revelation is simple, yet powerful. They never had real power. Their strength was always borrowed from your pain, your confusion, your fear. Once you stopped feeding them, the facade collapsed. And when you turned toward God, the source of all truth and strength, the spirit could no longer stand against you. This is why they fear you, not because of who you were when they met you, but because of who you have become in spite of them. You carry light they cannot extinguish, strength they cannot break, and a destiny they cannot derail. And that destiny is bigger than anything they tried to trap you in. It is a calling that transcends their lies, a future that outshines their chaos, a purpose that no demonic spirit can cancel. The very fact that you are still here, still breathing, still fighting, still rising, is proof that their efforts failed. What they meant for harm, God has turned into good. What they tried to bury, God has resurrected. And what they wanted to destroy has only become stronger, wiser, and more radiant. So let this be your revelation. You do not need to fear the narcissist spirit, because it fears you. It fears your peace. It fears your clarity. It fears your healing. Most of all, it fears your unbreakable connection with God, because in His presence, every chain falls, every lie dies, and every shadow flees. You are not weak. You are not broken.